And here we are once again, everyone, with another co-review with our good friend and a fellow critic, Katie Glidewell, the Buzzed-in Front. How you doing, Katie?
Good. It is going to be the blonde and back to the blonde in front. I would say within another month. I'm thinking.
Really? Is it
So
growing that fast? Though I do like kind of the Annie Lennox look for you. You know,
here's the thing. I think I'm going to keep this little pixie, this little Mia
Sure.
Farrow, Rosemary's Baby pixie, but then make it like all blonde. In
So that,
fact, to go along with the Y2K film, there actually is a new commercial out for the 90s Taco Bell.
yeah.
There is a young lady in that video, in that commercial, who has hair very similar to mine. It is blonde. She's got the black choker. She's
Oh
got
wow.
wearing black, and I'm like, I never knew I was such a 90s girl, but that is what I am going to be going for. It's like, and I already sent it to my friend Kat who does my hair, and I'm like, okay, I've got my muse. Let's make this happen because this is
Nice.
exactly what I want to look like.
Yeah, I gotta get a haircut soon. I go buzzed, so I have two cowlicks here, like everybody's interested, and they go opposite directions. So though I am getting balder, so that's the good thing about getting older is I'm losing the hair here, so I don't have to. It doesn't take me as long to cut my hair anymore. So there is
Nice.
that for
Well,
myself. So
here's a little inside scoop. So, I mean, everyone should always be nice to me. When I went bald because of my chemo and then it
yeah.
came back, you could see the colics in the back. And I actually have three
Oh
that when
wow.
you take a picture of them, they look like three sixes. So, just to let
Well,
you guys know, I actually have a photo and I'm like, why does it look like they're three sixes? And my sister's like, oh shit, they do look like. I'm like, yeah, you guys really need to be nice to me because I might get
that fits.
daddy mad.
I was
Yeah,
gonna say that fits though, being the horror fan, that really fits for you. So and being the horror fan, we have. I mean, it's anyone who hasn't noticed, we are in. I don't know if I want to say another golden age of horror, but a horror, and not necessarily horror renaissance, but uh, horror has definitely grown again in popularity that hasn't been, I think, at this level since the 80s.
hmm
I think it's fair to say that, and people will say, well, the 90s had screaming that. I'm like, no, when you can go to a theater at one point this past year in 2024, I went to the theater and 7 of the 8 movies were horror films of some sort. Hasn't happened in decades. Okay, folks.
Well, and every single weekend there'll be at least 1 to 2
Mhm.
horror films, like no matter when, not just October, but
Right.
anytime during the year.
Mhm.
That says a lot.
It
That they're in the theaters. So yeah, I agree with you. I definitely feel like it is a new age. I don't know, a new age of horror.
New age of horror. I think that'd be a good way to put it. New age
Yeah.
of horror because it is different, but just in general, and over the last, we've seen it ever since was it 2016 or 18, the first Halloween. I think that was when the Halloween came out. For this last trilogy, when the first film in that, I think that was really the mark of when you saw the surge of it, and it's just grown since. And also, it kind of coincides with the end of the MCU. Go figure. Uh,
Mark of the Beast. So that would have been 2018 or so,
yeah.
because then it
Hmm.
wasn't long after that. Then it was the millennium, and again, that was another great time for horror because everything's streaming. So what
Yeah.
better way to scare ourselves silly than to scare ourselves even more?
More skilly. That's right. And I'm not sure if tonight's film that we're getting to scared me at all, except the historical inaccuracies, because I was around during 1999, December 31st, 1999. In fact, I worked in IT during Y2K, and I'll share that as we go along. But yes, folks, we are talking Y2K, latest horror film to be released. Katie Glidewell always bringing the swag. Yeah, and Y2K. Why don't you give the synopsis for Y2K?
So Y2K is the story of Eli and Danny. It is the New Year's Eve of 1999. Eli has a major crush on this girl named Laura, and it is their, I believe everyone's a senior. I can't remember if
Yeah. Well,
Eli and Danny are, yeah, so everyone's a senior. So Eli and Danny have their own things. They play video games. They go to the video store. They watch, movies and stuff like that. There's even a back room in the video store that you can go to. Don't have those anymore. That really took me back. It's like, oh
yeah.
man, the back room, the video store. Woo! Forgot
beaded
about
curtain,
that.
beaded curtain, and everything. I love
Yeah,
it.
forgot about that. And Danny tells Eli, like, look, this is our time. Who knows? The world could end tomorrow. Let's go to this party that Chris is having. Not that Chris, but the other Chris, soccer Chris, I believe.
Yeah, soccer
Um,
Chris.
and declare your love for Laura. She broke up with her boyfriend, or they're not together. They're Laura and Eli are friends. Obviously, he wants something more. It's time to make your move. So they go to the party. While they're there, Danny is definitely he's living his life. He's making it. He is like almost hooking up with a girl. It kind of reminds me of the Breakfast Club, where people have been doing stuff all their lives. The foreign exchange student comes in, gets a girlfriend, starts to do stuff. I mean, like, and everyone else is like, what? Why has this not been happening? Even though Danny's been there basically all of his life, but no one kind of remembers. And then he starts to sing the thong song, which is Chef's Kiss. He also takes a jab and brings up a little story regarding Eli that is not beneficial to Eli whatsoever, but definitely, brings up Danny's cred. Eli's just trying to figure out what he's going to do, because it's like he feels like he's like a fish out of water. Everyone's having a great time. It definitely has like a mixture of Can't Hardly Wait meets Clueless vibes. It's like I'm getting that. And then Y2K happens, and it's midnight. Laura's actually kissing her ex-boyfriend, so that's a meh. And then Y2K happens, and the lights go out, and then they come back on, and they kind of go back out, and then you hear there's this screaming, and the kids go upstairs, and a electric bed that goes in and out has decided to squish the guy, like like completely not boomerang, but catapults this girl onto the fan and the floor. And then you get into a little bit of some Maximum Overdrive stuff, where all the stuff that we love, that's supposed to be taking care of us, like the computers and microwaves and different things, they are now trying to kill us. So one of the things I love about this film is that you've got the rom-comish teen comedy stuff of, like I said, Can't Hardly Wait and Clueless. Then it gets into like an 80s Maximum Overdrive, psychopathic Short Circuit, a little bit of Invaders from Mars, all with this killer Millennium soundtrack and fashion. This is all mine. Besides, I did not pay for this shirt. This was given to me. This is mine. This is mine. I mean, and some stuff similar to this is actually in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Who knew I was so influenced in my wardrobe by the 90s that it's still stuck with me? There's a ragtag group of kids who just like make it out of the house. And it also is very Game of Thrones, where you think that some people are going to make it to the end or a little bit longer. Oh, nay, they do not, which was a big surprise to me.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. The machines not only are killing them in the house, but they're forming bonds together where they're like making like ultra on top of each other, like networking machine monsters that are coming after owners and anyone to try and like kill them or incorporate them into a drone of what they want these humans to be. That's where to kind of get the invaders of Mars. Now, there's some laughs. I liked the ingenuity of the, mixing the machines together. There's some kills that are just gnarly, and also it's like, oh, well, you know what? I respect that you didn't try and prolong that death. Like they just
Yeah.
died. Good for you. I wish more movies could be like that. No, like, 2-minute monologue, final words, and all that stuff. But it's like, okay, some people may not like this, and I could kind of see it's a little long. It also has some fun, like buddy um, moments where they're like singing the songs that I loved from the Millennium. But the thing that I really liked about this film is like when I was watching it and the more I thought about it, it really reminded me of those cult classics from the 80s that you watch now and they may not be that great, but there's so many dumb moments from them that I'm like, oh man, yeah, now I understand why it's like I watched this over and over again on cable. One, because that was the only option I had, but two, I mean, I had HBO and Cinemax, so if I wanted to watch Showtime and watch this movie over and over again, I would do that. I can see this movie doing very well on streaming. Like
Oh
honestly,
yeah.
I think people like maybe missing this at the theater, but then catching it on streaming, they're gonna get that little nostalgia narcotic. And I love the different surprises. Here's one that is not a surprise: Alicia Silverstone. She's in it. It definitely made me feel ancient knowing that she's
Yes.
playing a mom now. She has played moms in different things. I'm not saying that. In fact, I think she played Jaden Martell's mom in another film uh, where she had a much worse outcome.
hmm
I'd have to recheck that. I know it's on IMDb, but this one to see her, and then spoiler alert, it's in IMDb, so I'm going to say Fred Durst. Seeing Fred Durst in the film now, he has acted before. He's actually in I Saw the TV Glow, but Fred Durst is playing Fred Durst in this. Yeah, backward red cap, the little goatee, everything. And he's also maybe singing, one song or two in the film that it's like, he's not singing the one that I thought he would sing. And it's also kind of funny that the one that I thought they would play is not played at all in the film. So
Yeah.
I don't understand. But the one that he does sing and play is amazing. It's pretty damn good. Does it say a lot about AI and, at least trying to connect with each other more and maybe not get on the computers and do all that stuff? Yeah. And I mean, if you think about it, think how much, I mean, it's like, you have the Tamagotchi, which someone says is like the Tamagotchi just blew through a chick's head, which, I mean, if you don't know what a Tamagotchi is, look it up. I'm not going to try and explain it. I aged out of that by the time I was the age this movie would have been. So I never had a Tamagotchi.
Mm.
But I love the little Tybo references. I'm surprised they didn't have some little things to Clio, the psychic network that they
Yeah.
have. But I guess if
hmm
it would have shown some TV stuff later in the night, they probably would have. Uh, I thought this was a fun film. Again, the soundtrack, the soundtrack of my life. I mean, all these songs from the 90s and early millennium that I love. And I loved it so much that, yes, I went on A24 and I bought the CD.
Cool.
I have a CD player. I can play those. I actually have a Walkman, like the CD Walkman. Yeah, that's right. Because, reuse, recycle. You can make those things
That's
work
right.
and they still work. I thought Jaden Martell is a little bit, I don't know. I'm kind of, I think he was great in the It films, but I feel like he's just stereotyped in all these movies where he's sort of the awkward guy who gets beat up a lot. And I think he's a great actor. Like, I really liked him in Knives Out. So, and even the uh, movie he was in with Melissa McCarthy and Bill Murray. I mean, I think this kid has chops, and I just hope he, you know, gets out of this kind of thing that he's in with the awkward high schooler thing. But I think that Julian Dennison is a standout. I think that Rachel Ziegler and Jada Martell, maybe, I don't know. I mean, it's the end of the world, so anything can happen. So it's like, you might as well. Would that I mean, they have nice some nice moments in the film and stuff like that. And again, I liked the practical effects. I think it's gonna I would have bought the VHS if it had not already sold out, because that's right, it's already sold out on A24. That means it's really popular. And I say give it a watch. Like, it's just dumb fun, especially with December when you've got, believe me, whew, this past weekend I've watched 8 movies that are up for critics awards and stuff like that, different things. This is Y2K is one of those movies that it's like, you know what? This is just the exhale that I needed. It's just stupid fun. I honestly would like to see it again. So it's kind of like a palate cleanser before I watch some more things about some horrific things that go on around the world, and enjoy a lot of the music that just makes me think back to that time period, you know, when, we all thought the world was going to end after Y2K. And guess what? He didn't, because of amazing people like Mark, who made sure that the world would not end and our computers would not blow up and try and kill us.
December 31st, me and my 2 coworkers in my department, we basically sat from about 9, not even 9 p.m. I think it was like 6 or 7 p.m. because that was when the international dateline, when Australia and that were first going to get with it. And we basically sat in our IT department. The fantastic assistant to the CEO, she ordered us huge food platters and everything. And we sat there and basically watched the computers not break down and the world not end, because everybody did their job and patched things. And then we watched the media talk about how it's going to be it must have been a hoax because nothing melted down. And the rest of us are like, no, we just all did our job. So thank you. Yeah, that was interesting times in technology. And folks, yes, warning, there is another Y2K type event coming up in about 10 years. So prepare yourself accordingly. But as far as the Y2K movie goes, I am glad you found so much enjoyment in it. Unfortunately,
I knew this was coming.
now, I gave it a chance. Here's the thing is, especially modern comedies are tough for me. Mainly because, and we had these in the 80s as well, and maybe they were just handled a little bit differently, but I understand teenagers and teenage boys and such are raging balls of hormones, but our friendship between Danny and Eli is definitely exaggerated quite a bit in this to what boys at that age actually are doing, or the way they talk and such. At least the many people that I hung around with, maybe that's what I was missing. And I was a little bit older in the 90s. I was 18 in 93, so I was kind of at the tail end of it. So maybe but I can let it go for that. The over raunchy comedies that are explicitly raunchy, I don't mind. I just thought, some of the humor in that I know I was supposed to feel for between these 2 characters, at least in the beginning, was a little rough. Also, it had the problem. I had the same problem with this that I had with Stranger Things. It took me a couple episodes to get into Stranger Things when it stopped trying to chalk through every reference of that period within the first couple episodes and actually got to the story. And that's the way I felt with Y2K. Was I get the nostalgia, but it's overplayed in here. As much as Neon for the 80s is played, it was played a little bit too much for me, like going, okay, yes, we know we're in the 90s. We're in the late 90s here. We know this. We don't need this reference thrown in our face. Oh, and there's another reference. And I did like the Tybo reference. I'm like, oh yeah, that was a thing back then. So a couple of the things brought me back, but the over excessive amount of references got a little bit too much. So once it got past that and got into the story, like when we got into them wanting to sneak into the party and that, I liked that bit of it. I liked that bit of it. I liked the Danny and Eli dynamic. Once they were getting into the party, I liked the video store scene as well. So like that kind of first third eased me into it. Once they stopped throwing so many 90s references at me, I'm like, okay, cool. And then we get into the coming of age part. And I mean, Julian Dennison is the highlight for this film. And folks, this is spoilers. So if you don't want to know what happens, turn it off now. And I think it does a disservice of, I understand why they did it, because they wanted to shock you and show that anybody at any time could pass. At the same time, he was a very interesting character, and I wanted to see more of that dynamic during the disaster, dealing with the disaster between Danny and Eli. I wanted to see more how they would handle that versus what we got in here, you know. But that's just me. Again, when I saw it was Jonah Hill is one of the executive producers in here, it explained the humor and modern humor comedies, especially the Seth Rogen type of humor, the super bad type of humor films. Those just don't really connect with me too much. So, and you have that type of humor in here because I get it. It's trying to emulate a late 90s comedy. I don't fault it for that at all. This just wasn't really my type of humor and film for the film. But I liked it in fits and spurts. I liked the Fred Durst part of it. I thought Fred Durst showing up actually is one of the highlight of the films as well. His acting, I think, is better than a couple of the other folks who are supposed to be more seasoned actors. So I enjoyed that aspect of it. In all honesty, I wish, while I loved the practical effects, I loved the Gonzo kills in this and the horror that they were doing with it. At the same time, I almost wish they would have leaned back on the horror a bit, because I was enjoying watching these characters trying to deal with the apocalypse type of happening without having crazy robots. I would have rather had them have to deal with people going out of control, riots and such like that, more so than the crazy robots, because the crazy robot part didn't feel as thought out as it could have been. It almost felt a little bit like they were throwing just whatever into it. Oh, they're combining with each other. Oh, here's the code, but then we get a hackers moment in here. We literally get a hackers moment, folks. There's a reference to hackers in here where we literally have the glass tower computer file system in here, which as an IT guy makes my eye twitch, but that's okay. And I don't know what it is. There was part of me sitting going, I really should be enjoying this film more, but for me, it felt a lot of very surface level for me. Many of the things going on in here, to where I wish they would have leaned even more either into the horror zaniness or scaled back, and it felt like they were trying to kind of do in between, like we're doing the coming of age story kind of seriousness, but we're also going into the completely wacko robots. And for me, I wasn't quite sure how to feel about this film coming out. It was kind of middle for me. I enjoyed parts of it. There were a few parts that I did like. I did laugh when Fred Durst did bust out in the song that he busted out in for the boomer parents that were all gathered in the gym. I'm like, that was very appropriate. Well,
Boomer parent, but I
boomer
guess
parent.
yeah, they are boomer parents
They
because
they're
we're
tail
Gen.
end
I mean, everyone there is Gen X, so yeah, they're boomer parents. Yeah,
they're kind of the tail end boomer parents. Okay, they're kind of in the in between boomer, but they were too old to really be just Gen X parents, but a little bit younger to be like older boomer parents. So they were I felt like they were kind of in between that they weren't quite Gen X parents. But I thought his song was very appropriate for the audience he was trying to appeal to. You know, and I guess for me it was really up and down for me. Just as I was starting to get into things, I liked the stoner character quite a bit. But losing Danny so early, uh it kind of took me it kind of disconnected me a bit because I really liked what they were doing with the Danny Eli uh angle more so than the Laura Eli angle. And I think it's what you were had to say. Rachel does well in here. She's really into character. She's all in. Julian Dennison, he's all in. Even Daniel playing CJ. I liked Lachlan Watson. She
yep,
after Danny is out of the picture, I liked the Ash character the best. I found her fascinating. But Jaden Martell, I don't know if it was the direction or just the way he was written, but he felt like he was just kind of there in many respects. He did even his interaction with Danny. His interaction with Danny was better because Julian Dennison was kind of making up for it.
yeah,
And I maybe think that's part of the reason why I couldn't quite get into this is because Eli wasn't even playing like your stereotypical outsider kid. He felt like he was just there, you and I guess I did feel for him at all. I
yeah.
felt nothing for him.
Well, and I agree. After, because again, we're talking spoilers.
Yeah.
After Danny died, and then after Farkas died, who's played by Eduardo Franco, who is big in Stranger Things. I
Yes.
really feel like Lachlan Watson, who plays Ash, she got to see like who she needed to be and like look at herself internally and not because she's part of this group of these guys who treated her like crap.
Yeah.
And it was a very I like how they made that a very self-aware moment when you're dealing with all this apocalypse stuff, that it's
Mhm.
like, you know, they're talking to her about the guys she was hanging out with, and she was realizing it's like, yeah, these guys are jerks. I mean, not necessarily saying that she wanted them to die, but I mean,
Right.
these were her people, and she realizes like they didn't necessarily care about me or think
Mhm.
about my well-being at all, and they made me feel bad about myself and all that stuff. And you know, that was a big um like aha moment for her. And I
Mhm.
think that's interesting that while this film is going on that they had that, because you don't see that a lot in, or you don't see that at all in, like, you know,
Right.
teen comedies, teen
Mhm.
horror films, stuff like that. And I thought that was I really liked that they did that for her and her character. I agree with you. Yeah, Eli, I don't know. I mean, I know he's going through a lot. He watched his best friend die. He also watched a lot of his other friends die. So did everyone else
Right.
in that house. And they also point that out. It's like, you know, because Laura says, like, yeah, my boyfriend just died in front of my face. So yeah, I know what you're going through. So it's not like he's the only one who's going through different things. I don't know. It's also the fact that, again, we're talking spoilers. At the end, it's 5 years later.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily sure what, and it also seemed like, was it that this only happened in their town? Like it was kind of like a beta testing to see how this would go, and then they were gonna go off to the bigger cities. Because I don't know. I kind of would think that if it seemed like they were using technology when they went to the graveyard. So I would think that it's like, wouldn't that be like a no no? Like it's like, you know, everything just tried to kill you. maybe not use computers and stuff like that. That's just me. I don't know how dumb you are. Maybe let's, oh, that's just a glitch. Well, we fixed it. Did you? I don't know.
See,
Because that's what I got. I kind of got that this was just like it was only focused in this town. Like the computers are trying to see if they could, take over everything and work through the kinks before they went worldwide. Or what? Am I wrong? Were they going?
they see, and I guess that's where part of me being a sci-fi guy too, I'm like sitting there going, you don't have your rules in it. It felt like it wasn't well explained. I thought that this was going global, because when I love the fact that Laura's a hacker in the late 90s. She's a female programmer. I loved that aspect. I loved the Laura character,
Well,
you
and
know.
she gets called out on that. It's like you can't do that. You're a girl.
Right.
Okay, all right. Here's some misogyny.
Right. Right. And so I loved that. That's why I said I enjoyed a lot of the characters around our main character, and maybe that's why I didn't quite enjoy this film, because I did not pull for Eli at all. At any point, if he died, I would not have been sad by it. I would have rather had Danny live and Eli die in many respects. I know that sounds horrible, but because the Eli character, yeah, but Laura was so interesting with her programming, and she described how it was a hive mind, and how that they were setting up these areas to where they were going to attach chips and create the entire human race as a processor. And it felt like they were describing that this was going global, but that they had, if she could get to this one, she could save the entire like world. Because at the end of the impression was that almost that she was like saving the entire world by doing this.
Yeah,
So it was never quite established fully if this is global or if it was just starting from this, from this one town. But I felt it was global because you had the planes crashing, and you had a number of other things reported. So it wasn't established, nor were quite rules with the robots, because the thing was with the combining robots, I liked that concept, but it was too quick for me. Like, Y2K happened, and already the Tamagotchi is killer Tamagotchi. Now, I like the idea of the bed when the bed killed them. I know this sounds sick, folks, but just deal with me. Just roll with me here. I like that idea because I thought, just like you, I'm like, oh, they're going to play this kind of like a Maximum Overdrive angle where technology, because you had the bed doing that, you had the VHS tape that gets shot out like a cannon and kills people. I'm like, okay, I could get behind this. And
hmm
Y2K hadn't happened for 3 minutes, and the Tamagotchi had already combined itself into this killing, flame throwing machine. And I was like, that was felt like it was a little too soon for that moment. Whereas I would have rather had this been a spiritual Maximum Overdrive, to where you had most of the technology stuff rebelling against them, not necessarily the robot angle of it. I get, at least right away, the one mega robot chasing them, I would have been fine with, But when we get to all these other robots and things, and they get into this, it didn't feel though like it was very well thought out. Like they just came up with this, oh, this is going to be a good gimmick, and left it at that. And I guess for my brain, I don't need my handheld. I don't need this to be deep, but I do need at least a little bit of structure to your rules of how this is going to happen, in order for me to kind of get into it and follow, okay, this makes sense. Otherwise, some of these things, especially later on, just don't make sense. Now when we get to Laura programming and that explanation, I'm like, okay, I can get into this now a little bit. And then we get, of course, get our Lawnmower Man reference in here, with them showing up. I'm like, oh yeah, there's our Lawnmower graphic man graphics,
Oh yeah,
with
Max Headroom,
Max Headroom,
Max Blow Your Head Off Room. Yeah, that's what I called it.
and the whole USB angle was ridiculous in that, and that, and I guess that's again, I enjoyed bits and pieces and parts of this, but looking at it as a whole, I came out going, "Oh, okay." And I know people who enjoyed it, and I'm glad you found a lot more enjoyment into it than me. But I guess for me, if you're gonna start getting into the robots and that structuring, and people might say, "Well, Mark, you like Maximum Overdrive. There wasn't very." I'm like, it's established in the beginning. You get your rules. Comet, tail, things started happening that were coming to life, but you didn't get combining or anything like they were going here, which you're taking it to a next level. I get that. Lean more into it then. And that's the thing, is it felt like it tried to lean into both the coming of age part and the horror robot take over the world part. And for me, they don't quite get there with either one. But again, that's me. It's I like the soundtrack. It was great, bringing back some memories for sure. I guess just for me, maybe because it took itself just a little bit too serious for me to buy into the ridiculousness of it, and I would have liked to see more ridiculousness if you're going to go really that angle. And maybe that's just me.
I don't know. I thought it was pretty ridiculous, especially when Eli's computer like was walking and they found him and they kind of treated it like a dog. It's like,
Yeah.
hey boy, it's me. What? You want to tell me something? And I'm like, I'm sorry, are they talking to his computer like Lassie? I'm like, look, it's like, you know her. It's blah blah blah,
Mm-hmm.
66 or something like that. And I'm like, oh, those those sites that I never got into. My roommate did at the time. She would like talk to everyone. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm good talking to people face to face. I don't need to do the all that. No. Like bleep bloop 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 bleep. And I still do that. I still say bleep bloop bloop. But yeah, when they had his computer and he
Mm-hmm.
recognized it, come up to him and he was like acting scared and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, you're giving the computer feelings like it's an actual thing.
Right.
I feel like you possibly maybe with the Tamagotchi like setting stuff on fire. I feel like if maybe you had seen those things like come together, maybe that would have worked better for you. For me, I figured it's like, look, they're machines, they're in a schedule. Like, let's get it going. We're not gonna F around. And it's like this and this and this and this and get the parts and all that stuff. Um, I don't know. Maybe I've seen too many things from what's the dumb series with
I've watched many of them over the years. I
I
don't
know
know.
with Megan Fox and Shia LaBeouf.
Transformers?
Yes, maybe it's because I watched too many Transformers movies. I'm very ashamed to say that.
I've
And
I've seen them all. I've seen them
yeah,
all.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I feel like it was very Transformers when they take the different parts and put them together and
Yep.
then are mixing them and like, oh, look what you did here. You took this and now you got this. And maybe
Right.
it's because I watched too many baking shows where it's like, here's your ingredients. Now you're going to have to make this beautiful souffle and go. It's like, but you have none of the ingredients for the souffle. So when I saw those like pieces come together, I was like, eh. I mean,
And
this. I mean,
and again, I didn't mind that. I think it was too quick. I would have liked to see the build up, the progression more to where, okay, the automatic bed killed them, the VCR killed them, maybe, have some of the electronic things, the microwave kills the guy, the dishwasher. See that a little bit longer build up than to we go from here to instant killer robot, from Forbidden Planet sort of a deal,
well, and I get
Robbie
what
the
you're
robot.
saying because
But
I mean, you've got singular objects that are doing all of these like horrendous things, and where is the teamwork? Like, where did the teamwork come into it? I can see that.
you
I
know,
can see that
it
because then you go from singular to maybe two to maybe three, four, but we went from singular to like three together, mixed and melded together, and then killing things. So I can yeah, I can
you
see
know,
your
it,
point in that. That is going from one step and just leapfrogging to this other thing. And in that point too, they then leapfrog that to then making them mobile
Oh,
and 6 feet tall, because it's not only like a small thing, you know,
yeah.
with the
But
Tamagotchi, it's then they're like stacking on stacking and then becoming these machines that are going to try and crush your head or do all that stuff. So yeah, I think that's what the film was. It's like just leapfrog, leapfrog, leapfrog
right. I,
to
I
this.
I think that took me out a little bit, that it was too big of a jumps too quickly. I would have liked to see a little bit more of a build up to supercomputer and them starting to put chips in people's head, because I mean, we're talking only a span of a few hours, right? From what we see to them putting chips into grown-ups heads already. And I guess for me, I would have liked to see a little bit better progression. I think that would have kept me more into the buildup of the threat of the robots, instead of, I didn't expect us to get Killer Robbie the robot, junkyard robot, like not even 10 minutes, not even 5 minutes after Y2K. It was just like a really quick jump. And I understand they were trying to make it that, oh, they're intelligent and that's why, but at the same time, I'm like, I get that, but at the same time, I think a little bit better progression for the threat to have it build up more and more would have worked better for me than, than this,
Well, and I mean this, and you've got like a few. I guess they go to school, and
yeah, they
then
go to the school. That's where the big
oh no, no, no!
supercomputer
I'm talking
hive is.
about like how much time this
Oh yeah.
movie, like how much time is actually
Hmm.
in this movie, because you've got their they wake up, they go to school, they're after school, they're gonna go to the party, and then from the party to when everything hits the monumental outcome, that from the party to that is like 6 hours, because I think it's like dawn and
Yeah, yeah,
it's
that's right.
everything's
Yeah.
gonna stop like at 6 a.m.
Yep.
So I mean, this whole film, encompasses less than 24 hours, and then it does a leap to 5 years
5 years.
later when they're paying their
which
respects and stuff like that. So
which that coda really felt like it served no purpose
yeah,
whatsoever. I'm like,
again, leapfrog. And it's also interesting that it's like 5 years later, but everyone pretty much looks the same, which it's like, no, that's I
yeah,
mean, you're gonna look a little different no matter what. There's always something, even if it's 5 years. But
yeah.
whatever.
The 5 years later I'm like, okay, and that didn't really feel like it served a huge amount I would have like, I could see maybe 6 months later, like they're going off to college together or whatnot, and then they come and visit their buddy or whatnot. But the 5 years later coda for me at the end, I was just like, so I mean, it is, again, modern comedies in general are tough for me, just in general. I just, for me, and maybe it's because for the 80s, when I was at the impressionable age, I watched a lot of those really golden 80 comedies and such that were really, I think, slightly better done, not quite so blatant, but I get what they were going for Y2K. And I even think, like I said this in my interview, my review is that it's just, I realize that I'm on the edge of, possibly for a lot of people, who this film was for, or just not quite my type of comedy. I would have liked to see it play out a little bit differently than it did. But I mean, it's fine. I just wasn't quite as entertained as say you are, at a number of other, and that's fine. For me, I don't know why. And again, maybe it'll grow on me. Maybe I'll revisit it and go, okay. Uh, but I think for me, it was the such blatant, just in your face. And we've had that in the 80s, but I don't know if it was just handled different or what. That some of the over sexuality of your teenage boys is played up high to the farcical level. Which, I mean, a film like this, it is satirical, and I get that, and parody, but I guess for me that also kind of turned me away from it a bit too. So
And yeah, for me, like, look, it's not going to be on my top 10 in
yeah.
any means. It's not, but it's not going to be on my worst
Oh
because,
no,
again, I
no,
feel like with more viewings and when I see it on streaming,
sure.
I'm going to love watching it. I
Hmm.
love the music. I love the different references that really took me back like 20 plus years. Like, oh my God, I completely forgot about that. That kind of thing. And yeah, I like the fact that you've got the teen sex comedies and stuff like in rom coms from the '90s mixed
Hmm.
with '80s horror and stuff like that with that Millennium soundtrack. So it felt like it was like a nice little synergy of all those different decades mixed together. I love, I mean, Kyle Mooney. I love Brick Zoo Bear. I know he wrote that. I know this is his, I think, directorial feature debut.
Yeah, it's his day. It's his directorial debut. Yeah.
Yeah. And as far as directing goes, I think he did a good job, especially in that party scene. Like, I feel like that's like a hard thing to do to give
Hmm.
it enough uh, credit and I mean, he had some like she's all that moments in there with like people dancing and singing and stuff like that. And you got the focus on different people, but then you've got the main stars coming in. That's I think he did a good job doing all
Yeah.
this as well as with the horror aspect. So I look forward to seeing, what else he has to do.
Hmm.
Is it a perfect film? No.
Right.
Again, would I say it's I don't even know if it's going to be my top 20, but I would definitely say it's going to be one that I can see as a future cult classic. I can see
Hmm.
probably my nephews watching this going, what is this? And then watching it and like, oh, I remember this scene and stuff like that. It kind of reminds me of Napoleon Dynamite. Like, I did
Hmm.
not like Napoleon Dynamite when I watched it the first time. In fact, I despised it and I thought all of my friends had a lobotomy in the theater. Like, I didn't understand what they were watching,
Hmm.
what they were talking about. It's like, why is everyone this is ridiculous. And then we were out and about and we were talking about it. It's like, oh, remember this scene? It's like, yeah. It's like, oh, remember this scene? Yeah. I'm like, oh, remember? He's like, you know what? Maybe I need to watch this again because you're bringing up all these different scenes. And yeah, I think they're funny. But it's like, why did I have just a bad taste in my mouth with this? And I think that with this one, I don't know. I can see this happening with a lot of people. Like, maybe it's not the first round, they didn't really get it, but like maybe I think with a couple, rewatch and stuff like that, they're gonna be like, you know what? This was yeah, okay, I get it now. I get it.
And
Especially anyone who remember look, and one of the things that I love about this movie is that the majority of the cast wasn't even conceived when this
yeah.
film was set.
Yes. Yeah.
So, like, for them to be singing like funk song, like they lived it and loved it, I'm like, oh, honey, you have no idea. It's like I heard the song 18 jillion times. It's like I feel you, I love you. It's like, yes, you are giving me everything. So like very like chef's kiss to Julian Dennison with that, like, amen to you. In fact, I did it IMDb. I think only 5 people in the cast, in the main cast, and I'm talking about the kids, not
Yeah.
like Kyle Mooney and only 5 were alive when
Hmm.
Y2K actually, and they were like 7 and under.
Yeah.
It also made
And
me feel a little bit old.
yeah, it did. It did for me too. And I may revisit it. I probably I got to give it some time and maybe I think it might grow on me. I don't know. Now that I know what to expect,
Yeah,
a little bit more. I've had a couple films to where, especially like comedies, to where I didn't like them the first time, but they've kind of grown on me a little bit, maybe not a huge amount, but a little bit because I know what I'm getting into now. And with this one, I know you don't watch trailers, but with me with this one, it is pretty much what the trailers asked for. It promised. Uh I guess for me, I'd have to give it a rewatch. Maybe down the road, I'll watch it again and see if it grows a little bit more now that I know what of a mixed bag that it is of what they were trying to go for with it. You know, and I think this time I was kind of going into a little bit more of, yeah, some humor, but going into more horror than what it does. I know it sounds weird, but I think maybe I was expecting a little bit more horror than what we got in here, and maybe that was part of it too, where I was like, oh, we're doing this and this.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, because I gave it 2 out of 5, you know. I said it is watchable, it is entertaining. Folks who definitely were teenagers during that time, which again I was on the tail end, probably will definitely enjoy it. You know, it is definitely for them for sure. That grew up during that time and were around that age. I guess for me, I just was hoping for something a little different, and so it hit me wrong when I watched it. So who knows? I'll watch it maybe in a year or so, and see if I feel differently about it. But Katie, always a pleasure to talk films with you. And doing these co-reviews is so much fun because, yes, folks, see, we don't always agree. We don't always agree. All right. So we might agree on Craven, though. We might agree on Craven. Even me, who, you know, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
I predict many Razzie nominations for that one.
I mean, here's my thing. Is it going to be like I think you were in the thread on this. Like I actually paid money to see it.
Same here.
I used a gift card though, so I don't feel like it's actual money. It's not real money. But as I said in the thread, you know, my worst list of the year is Craven Another Notch. Let's see if this is going to make it. Spoiler alert, it did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we'll definitely get into it when we do it, but I definitely will say worst screenplay of 2024. And I think it is that line that I've seen different people misquote because they say it's from Craven regarding his mom, and it's not. It's actually Ariana DeBose.
It's Ariana DeBose's grandmother.
Her grandmother. And if you have not seen it, this is the line. It's like, wait, you know what? Let me make sure because I actually wrote it down because I was like, what? Hold on. Dude, who wrote that? And also, Ariana, you were an Oscar-winning actress. Didn't you say like this makes no sense? The line is
here it comes.
She died not long after that trip, and I never saw her again. Okay, so I mean,
all you gotta do is switch the phrases around the and.
Yeah, and also like she like switch around. It's like I never saw her after that trip, and she died not long after that. Yeah. I mean, to say I never saw her after she died at what is it? She died not long after that trip, and I never saw her again. Did you never see her again? Because I mean, because she died. Yeah, I get that, but I mean, that's just so horribly worded. Like,
so I rated my enjoyment of Y2K above Craven. So we'll put it that at least. So,
and there's so many.
Oh, you know, I saw. I know I was gonna wrap it up, but now I just opened up this flood.
You really opened up this Pandora's box, and it's like Shit, shit,
I
shit.
opened up a Pandora's box. No, I saw someone said who they thought they liked it more than Madam Web. I'm like, I actually enjoyed Madam Web more than Craven.
I
It's
don't.
a
I
close.
mean,
It's close. Don't get me wrong. It's close, but I think I enjoyed Madam Web a little more than Craven. Uh, but that's that's because I think for as what Madam Web is, it had a more well crafted story than Craven.
I mean, maybe, and also is it's like get your bingo cards out, kids, because guess what? Russell Crowe has another very bad accent that he's trying to perfect in this movie.
For no, there's no reason. Yeah, okay. I gotta
Because
stop. Yeah,
it's like, okay, are you a drug dealer or are you a Russian oligarch? Because I'm trying to understand what his profession is. And it's also, it's like, I don't know, fine, we're talking about it. There's a scene where it's like his son has a ransom for $20 million. And I'm like, okay, maybe it's me, but $20 million actually doesn't sound like that much. Like, I mean,
for him, no.
for
That
him, I feel like it's not. And also, it just seemed really weird because you got two sons, and one of them you're trying to like toughen up. And then he's like, I'm not having this. And he leaves. So then when the other one is there with you, so then you're not trying to toughen up the other one? Like, what is going on? I don't
yeah,
understand.
no. There's many problems with that, and that's why I think the Razzies are. I predict and I'm not big on the Razzies anymore because they go for low hanging fruit, and I used to enjoy them a little more than the last number of years. But I think they're gonna. I think you're gonna see Madam Web and Craven a lot
I
during.
mean, don't get me wrong. There's a number of scenes on this that if you like, the look of a good looking man, I mean, there's
Oh
some
yeah,
scenes
yeah.
that even from one of the bad guys, I'm like, ooh, I don't
No,
know. Has
no.
what's going on? It's like, oh my God, Alessandro Novello, the way you do this with your finger, I'm like, oh, why am I getting so turned on by that? Like, this is just weird. What? But
Uh,
also, I mean, Christopher Abbott, yum. I mean, obviously, the main guy, hala hala,
well,
and
his
Aaron Taylor.
abs needed their own credit.
Well,
His abs needed their own
and I
credit.
mean, they have the air. It's like they have a very Jason Momoa moment
Yes.
with Aaron Taylor Johnson, where it's like, oh, you're just shirtless for no reason. I am not. This is a part where I'm not complaining about this at all. Also, you end the film with a BDE like final shot. Fine. I actually stayed longer. Anyone who's watching this, you don't have to stay through the credits. There's nothing. It just
There's
ends with a
no yeah.
BDE with Aaron Taylor Johnson in
Yeah.
no shirt, a vest, and a chair. Fine. I actually like that more than the majority of the movie.
That's the best shot. That's the best shot.
Yeah, one of the
Best
best
moment of the
shots,
entire film. Yeah.
one of the best shots in the film. But there's definitely a lot of stuff that it's like,
Yeah.
what?
So yeah, in that respect, I enjoyed Y2K far more than I enjoyed Craven for many reasons, namely because at least things were more coherent in Y2K than they were in Craven. So thank you, Katie. Where can they find your stuff at when you're not here talking to us?
They can find me at the Blonde in Front on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, at least TikTok for another few weeks. I don't know
At
how much,
least,
like a
yeah.
month. I don't know what's going on. And yeah, and then whenever I guest on different vlogs like yours and podcasts, I always put those on my different social media sites.
Well, we appreciate you always. It's always a fun conversation with you, Katie. I love these co-reviews we do, and I hope you folks out there are enjoying them as well. And yes, check out Katie's stuff. And we got some interesting stuff coming up on the channel. So if you haven't hit like, subscribe, and all that, please do that, both for Katie's stuff and if you want to, our stuff here, because I've got an interview with filmmaker Mel House, which just recently went live. And I'll have an interview this week with a person named Jason Krawcheck, no relation as far as I know. He's the gentleman behind He Never Died, She Never Died, and he has a new film out, a Tubi exclusive, that was very entertaining called Sunset Superman that we're going to talk about hopefully this week. We're coordinating that interview, so look for that, and a lot of reviews to be dropping in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned, folks. Thank you. And yeah, Y2K, baby.
Y2K and this review, so you can too.
Nice. Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.